As I mentioned when we first began, the purpose of this training was twofold. Number one was to give you some practical knowledge to use when working with computers. And number two was to get you ready to take and pass the A+ certification test should you decide to do so. And although I can't guarantee that you'll pass the tests, I can give you some tips on taking and passing the A+ certification tests. Number one, go ahead and schedule the tests now. Go ahead and schedule the Core Essentials test first and the Operating System test last, and schedule them about 2 or 3 days apart. This may seem backwards for me to say to schedule the test now. You may want to study first, but take my word for it. Study after you schedule the tests, because that way you'll have a guidepost, and that way you will actually go take the tests. If you don't schedule the tests now, you may put it off and never take the tests. I've provided the website information for both Sylvan Prometric as well as Virtual University Enterprises. You can get information about the testing centers in your area, as well as telephone numbers if you want to talk to somebody on the phone. But go ahead and schedule the test. Number two, study this material. Review this material more than once. You'll find that the second time that you go through it, you'll see and hear things that you didn't see and hear the first time. That's just human nature. Number three, read a good test study book. There are many on the market. ExamCram is a good one. Cybex is a good one. But there are many good test study books on the market. A good test study book should do two things. Number one, review the information that will be on the test. But number two, give you some tips on how to take the test. And a good test study book should also give you some sample test questions. But in addition, you need to have some experience at taking the tests on the computer. So take a good sample test. Self-test software makes a very good A+ sample test. MeasureUp is another good one, and so is Transcender. There are others on the market. But the main thing is, get used to taking tests on the computer. You should be scoring between 90 and 100% almost consistently before you go take the real test. When you're ready to take the real test, prepare yourself both mentally and physically. Get a good night's sleep the night before. Eat something that you like, which will put you in a good mood and also give you energy. Get to the test center early and bring 2 forms of identification. They're going to need the identification to make sure that you are who you say you are, and get there early so that you don't feel rushed. Review right before the exam, but don't cram. In other words, relax. If you're not ready to take the test now, you're not going to be in the next 5 minutes. So just relax. Review some of the information, but don't cram. I would highly recommend taking any practice tests that are offered if you haven't used the testing software before. In other words, some testing centers will offer you the ability to take a test that has nothing to do with computers, but gets you used to the way that they test. I would highly recommend taking those types of tests so that you'll get used to that testing engine. When you start taking the test, relax and read the whole question and all of the possible answers before you respond. You'll have plenty of time to take the test if you follow this example. Reading the entire question and all of the possible answers will not only help you answer that question better, but may also give you some hints to help answer questions to come. And last, review the test to make sure that your responses were what you had intended, but be very careful about changing your first response. First responses are very often accurate. So if you're not absolutely sure, don't change your first response. Just make sure that it was what you had intended. So my last bit of advice is you can do it. Go take and pass the A+ certification test.